Good morning, Mr. Plum. I've been so I put in that last commit, moving that thing this morning, and then I've been working on getting my emergency branch, which if you remember the emergency branch, which has the exporter, like the big PR in it, getting it synced up with that new span data.
Cool. What should be our next sort of strategic surgical change? Because
So the only thing that I can think of that could be surgical at this point is to add all the crapola plus the tests for the readable span implementation and the readable span interface. Although seeing that stuff out of context might be a little weird.
it's true. So maybe we could do that and the span adapter, even if nobody's calling the span adapter yet.
That's a good idea.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So as soon as I get this back compiling, I will push this emergency branch as something that's named better.
First sip of coffee. Here we go.
I need to get mine. I guess I'll get it after the meeting.
We might be the meeting.
That would be fun. Anyway,
also don't see any meeting notes being updated. They're still last week's.
Interesting. Do you want to? Let me get that. So yes, let me get that branch happy again with the rework and the repackaging. I think it'll take me another, I'm hoping 20 minutes. And then I'll push that to something that means something, and then maybe you can grab the conversion, although we have maintenance mob, so.
Yeah, maintenance mob's getting up in the morning. Yep. Well, no one else is on the getter. Or at least no one else is typing on the getter.
Get her done.
Although Sergey seemed to suggest that the location has changed.
Well, that's why I was super confused.
But there's no, yeah.
Do you want to jump out and see if the old meeting invite? Like I have the old meeting invite. Maybe I can do that.
I don't have it.
All right, I have the old link. Wonder if I can join two meetings at once.
Oh, maybe I do have it. Let's see.
The old one has a Lightstep link, lightstep.zoom.us. Let me bop into that one, see if I can join two meetings. I don't know if I can. I'm gonna leave. Oh, there's Tyler. Good morning, Datadog Tyler, or good afternoon, wherever you are.
We think we're in the wrong meeting.
Morning.
Do you think that this is the right meeting, Tyler?
There's Bogdan. We're in the right place.
Hello.
Okay, there we are.
Sorry, I was a bit late.
Not a problem.
We should have a Carlos soon.
Bogdan, I think this is the first meeting that you and I have been on together. And I just wanted to say hello and thanks for your feedback on that PR.
No worries. I know I'm annoying.
No, it's good. I mean, we collectively need that sort of stuff, so it's all good.
Yeah, just wait. Jason and I will be plenty annoying too. So it's all good. As I have learned over the many years, smart people have differences in opinion and are willing to express them.
Okay, so probably we should start if Carlos is not joining. We have a bunch of things left. So there is this plan data, there is the continuation of this that you guys are working on, correct?
Yeah, so we were, Jason, and before everyone else showed up, Jason and I were just trying to strategize the next step. So I think we're going to go and put up in a follow-up PR that will have some tweaks to the readable span
Mm-hmm.
and an adapter that turns readable spans into span data
Mm-hmm.
as the next step. And then the third step will be to actually wire that up into the exporter
Mm-hmm.
and the processor pipeline.
Okay, perfect. That's one thing. The other one, I need to look at the issues. We have a bunch of issues.
Yeah, and I think Jason and I were actually going to tackle the porting the Zipkin exporter over after that.
Awesome. But the key is that a requirement right now, or we can delay it a bit?
Carlos was saying he thought it was needed for alpha, but if you think we could delay it, that's also fine.
I would delay it for the moment. I mean, I know we should do it, but this couple of days I don't want to provide programmatic configuration for instance. This is something that this is something that I want to discuss with everyone. I was spending time on this DI thing, and the idea is, should we not provide a manifest file in the SDK and not provide a provider in the SDK, and then every exporter or we will have different artifacts that will provide the initialization and everything. That's an option. Or the other option is we add setters for all the properties in the SDK, and we keep the SDK to be able to initialize itself.
Yeah. Well, I think I have some opinions on this one. Like, I like the SDK being as configurable as possible, but not exposing that to the API layer. Do you have a issue or a ticket that was specific?
So there is this there is the 552 issue.
Let me take a look.
I think you did it.
Probably.
Bogdan, do you want to just share your screen? That might be easier.
Okay. Share.
Yeah. Yeah, so this one, this one in particular was, so right now, the way that the SDK can be configured is essentially only via service provider, SPI, via system properties.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels very restricted to me. And I'd love to have a builder for the SDK and then have like a shim or an implementation or a helper or something that would do the SPI work based on system properties. Just because I know that, like, for example, all the services we have here at New Relic wouldn't be using that. That wouldn't be a way we could ever use it.
How would you use it?
So the engineers would probably just create it in a setup for the SDK in the actual application that was probably based on some custom environment variables from our internal build and deploy system.
Mm-hmm.
But and the host names and things like that, which I want to put onto the resource, would have to be just come programmatically from inode address get localhost.
Correct, but would you have a global tracer, or would you pass the tracer itself?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, Plum, do you have some ideas? Because we ran into this issue with our sample app with wanting to have two different tracers, right?
Yeah, and that ended up working fine. If there was just one global, we would not have been able to do the separate tracer thing.
But do you need to do that in practice?
I don't know. Does it have implications around containers? Sorry, I mean like servlet containers?
Shouldn't be, because it's one per class loader. They should have different class loaders, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the class loader separation should allow it to work. But you know what, having been on support for our agent for a long time, people's class loaders are always configured super crazy, especially with JBoss. Yeah, I don't. It's a question. I think I'm trying to remember who. Somebody had some. Whoever opened 517 had some ideas on that.
But is it true that you then pass it manually between functions, the tracer, or how do you pass it?
That's also a great question. I think in our little sample app that we were doing, we were passing a wrapper around the tracer to all of the things that needed it, which was not pretty. It was just kind of so what we hacked together quickly.
Yeah, that's the problem for me of having this kind of thing. The not having a global is this tracer is going to be spread in all the classes, and that will cause a bit of a pain for people to have it everywhere.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I wish there were a middle ground where you could have like a application local that wasn't shared across everything. But maybe the right solution is to not have we don't provide a global tracer, but let people build those singletons themselves as they need.
But the problem is then every third-party library will need to accept this, because
yeah, you're right.
there is now we will force every third-party library to have an API to set this and expose this in their public API, which they may not feel comfortable exposing somebody else's thing.
No, I hear you. That is totally true. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't have a great answer.
Yeah.
It seems like this is kind of a tricky problem.
I mean, we still have, we have this global by default, but people can still manually pass it. So there is no question. I mean, a bunch of people were asking me, but you have an instance, you can pass it if you want. There is no necessary requirement to use the global if you don't want.
Right. That's fair. That's totally fair. And we don't have that global tracer in OpenTelemetry yet, right? That was from Open Tracing.
No. We do have it hidden directly into the API. We have it here. It's here.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There's no requirement. We weren't using this at all in our sample app, for example.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you're not using, it's fine. Okay, by the way, for the issue 552, please come up with some kind of proposal or anything.
Yep, I will do that. Perfect. And I don't think it's super urgent, but yeah, Kevin, I think he had made some ideas as well.
Okay, ID generator is fine. Okay, I think we should address Kevin comments, but I'm focusing more on finishing the APIs that we have, APIs on the SDK and on the API level, public things. So then more than fixing all these minor, but I will need to take a look probably next week on this. Carlos, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry for being so late.
One thing that I want from you, go ahead and thumbs up if you are supporting for the community members for Jason and what's
John. John.
John. Yeah, put the mark of +1 there.
Yes.
So we discussed about the SPI thing and the global tracer versus not having it. I was giving them some examples where this will be a problem, not having a global thing. We still have to offer more custom setters and custom builders for the traces SDK, because people are asking for setting trace ID generator because they want to use it with the AWS or resources or stuff like that. That we mentioned that we allow people to do it, but we do not really have an API for that. But that's mostly on the SDK side, and my priority for this week is the public API. I saw your CL about your PR about adding the start and end time.
Mhm.
I'll review it after this meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
One thing that I want to discuss with everyone is this memory issue that I have in mind. So the issue is the following. We allow people to add lazy events, lazy attributes. By lazy means the values are lazily formatted, which means the object that the formatter object may hold a lot of memory. Okay, it means that, for example, I have a 5 megabytes object and I just wrap it in the formatter, and then later I'll look into the object and give to the tracing system the information from this object. So I hold an extra reference to the initial object for as long as the span exists, because whatever, I don't want to pay the cost on critical path to do the formatting and everything. In our current implementation, we do convert everything into proto, which means at that moment we remove all the reference to the objects that user had. So because that's a completely different object, we're not going to hold any reference. With the change to span data that we discuss, the problem is for links and for events, we will keep the same interface. We'll keep the same objects, or not. Or anyway, I need to make sure that we are not holding the same objects that the user give it to us. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
So you're saying that when we, so like in the adapter that we'll PR next, we need to make sure we make copies of the links and events?
Copies of the properties of them, not of the object. The object is an interface. So currently the object is an interface. So people may implement that, may use lambdas and give you the object with lazy formatting. So, and there is another question that I have. That's one possibility. The other question that I have is, in our current public API for supporting lazy events, we do have event as an interface. Let me show you. So we do have event as an interface, which means people can override this interface and override the get name and get attributes part of it. Make sense? So they can do any kind of crazy lazy configuration of every property. But I feel like in this way, they have to write two methods. They have to override two methods. Another option would be to go with what other languages do and have this as a concrete class and have an event formatter. And instead of our API on the span accepting an event, so currently here, people, if they want to have an anonymous class or a lambda, they will have to write a lot of code here because they have to override two methods, correct? They actually cannot do a lambda, actually. Here,
Yep.
they have to override two methods. So I was thinking if we have an event formatter that just has one method that produces the event, and the event becomes a concrete class, no longer an interface, that may be a better API. I want to hear some opinions about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. The first thing that springs to mind is that I wonder what the most common use case is going to be. I mean, if the most common use case is going to be that people just want to fling a concrete event with a couple attributes on it.
No, for that we do have this. So we do have this.
Oh, you're right. We have that already.
So we do have helpers for that. But for the one when things are lazily formatted.
Yeah. I think that sounds good. What would the interface look like? So you said formatter. Do you know what the signature of the method would be?
We will have here add event and an event formatter, and the event formatter will be an interface with just one method that says to event or whatever, something like that.
So it's like a supplier.
Yeah, a supplier pattern.
So another thing that we could consider is taking this method off of the API for the initial release and punting on it.
I'm happy. I mean, Taylor, to be honest, we promised that until January we can break the API as much as we want. So I would not, yes, if this would have been a stable release, I would agree with you. That's the right strategy. But because we have until January to make breaking changes, I don't care. Or do you feel it's the right mindset? Or
I mean, that's fine. My thought is that maybe we're just kind of imagining the way that people will use it instead of how they'll actually use it. So I guess maybe my question is, what is the intended use case for this kind of event? And is that something that people will commonly use?
So the intent is the following. Usually the name will be, the name you will not have troubles to know it. But the problem is a lot of the values inside the attributes, maybe things that you don't know, you have to like use some printfs and stuff like that. And you try to avoid doing that on your serving path, and then you put a formatter, and then later when we need it, we will call that formatter. Essentially, we'll do it on a separate thread, so we will not affect your service latency. Does it make sense?
Yeah, just the whole. So I get the desire to have it be like a lazy thing. I don't know if that really gets that much value in comparison with the. So maybe the alternative would be to have a attribute value that allows lazy evaluation.
Just the attribute value, you say. That may be a good thing.
I'm not arguing. I'm just trying to like consider alternatives here.
No. Because that may also solve this problem. Because even when one attribute is added, you may want to have. That's what Go does. The other thing that I'm curious is, do we need a set attributes field that allows you to set more key values?
Having a set attribute that takes a map of string and values.
Or just a variadic function, and we expect first to be a key and second to be an attribute value.
So
I don't think so.
The variable argument length, then I think you're stuck with just an object signature, so it's harder to have strongly typed.
Mm-hmm. I know. So Carlos, you said something, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's really required. I don't remember people asking for that in open tracing. Yeah, I mean, if you have time, you can cook that, but yes, like.
But in general, you do not have in open tracing. You don't have a way to record multiple tags.
Not really.
And you do like 5 set attributes continuous, correct?
Well, actually, in Python we have, but in Java we didn't. Yeah.
Awesome. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Okay, I was thinking first no, but then of course I'm thinking that. I mean, it's very common to add at least 2 or 3. Yeah.
I mean, for HTTP and for other things, it's very common. And
Yep.
And usually, what you will save couple of logs, because I mean you're not gonna have contention on that logs, because usually you just created the span and you will call set attributes couple of times. So that method is gonna probably be synchronized at one point, because you cannot implement it log free completely. So
yeah, I see your point. Sure, why not? Probably my only question would be how would it look? But I mean, it would have to have a different name, like set attributes. But yes. Did you want to take a? Do you want to take a look at that, or should I?
I think we should start on maybe make an issue on specs and say, hey, we are thinking to add a set attribute that allows you to add multiple attributes, and see how people react there.
Okay, yeah, it's probably even better. I mean, we could add that from the SDK side on our side, but yeah, it's probably not worth the effort if we are not putting that into the specification. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I will open then an issue in the specification and see how it goes from there.
Okay, that's good. That's probably the only things that I have in mind. I'm working on the metric side. If anyone is interested to see that, let me know.
I am interested in the final outcome because I'm not that familiar with the current effort. So, but would love to review that once it's ready.
Oh, you want to review the API or what?
Yeah, the API.
The API is already ready, I think.
So nice.
I'd actually be interested in kind of a recap of what some of the debate has been around the metrics API.
Oh,
I had a hard time following it.
There were a lot of debates, so let me know what you want to hear.
I guess maybe just the high-level summary of the most contentious ones.
So, yeah, a lot of the contention part, like the yesterday contention, I spent yesterday an hour and a half with a couple of people from Microsoft. A lot of contentions were about the fact that for distributions, or for what people calling in general distributions, we do not let people select any aggregation. So in the public API, people will just tell us that, hey, this will be a distribution. I will give you samples, all the samples for these distributions of values, but I'm not telling you what you're going to build, a histogram or a summary or anything like that. This was very contentious because people had troubles understanding why do we not want to allow the developer that instruments the code to define the aggregation. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So like for example, is the data that they're collecting? 'Cause I guess so. For example, if somebody's using something like uh, uh, Drop Wizard metrics that already has some level of distribution,
Yes.
like,
So in
and they
Drop
want to be
Wizard,
able to report that or export that to our API, that won't be possible with the current design.
correct. So one thing that I was keep telling people, the other contention point was like, I'm not expecting you to be able to export to our ecosystem via our API. The API is for directly recording your code. But if you are trying to report something that other system aggregates and does for you, you should use directly the exporter pattern, not our public API.
I think if we, I think I agree with you. If we try to support like all of the patterns under the sun, it's going to make the API overly complex.
Correct. That's my problem, and that was one of the contention point. The other one with this distribution thing. So yes, Drop Wizard or Micrometer or any one allow you to set up buckets for histogram, even saying this is a histogram, this is a summary, the summary being the one with calculated directly the percentiles. So all of these things are allowed in all the other API, Prometheus as well and everything. And I said, no, and the idea is for example, the gRPC developer that instruments gRPC with us, they will not know if the system that people will use are going to support summaries or are going to support histograms, because not all the systems support both, and also what are the right buckets for the histograms and so on. So we said, at the API level, the person who is giving us the data should not decide what kind of aggregation we will do with that data. And then at the SDK level, the person who runs the application, we will let them configure for every measure that was recorded with us, whatever they want to do with them. They want to build summaries, you can tell us for a global, for all the measurements, we'll produce this summary, or you can tell us for individual ones. Same for histograms or for everything. Does it make sense? So we are moving the decision of histogram versus summary or buckets and things like that to the next level, to the application owner, not the instrumentation person.
Yeah, this is actually interesting, having just worked through writing exporters for Micrometer and Drop Wizard and writing apps that use them to exercise them. I think my only question would be the discoverability of the instrumentation. So I imagine that there's going to be some sort of like a sampled interface that you could add stuff to. Like, hey, here's this thing that's sampled and you can add samples to it, right? And then on the back end, the application developer decides, I wanted this sample thing to be represented as a distribution, and this sample thing to be a summary, and this sample thing to generate a histogram bucket or something like that. But the discoverability is what I'm not sure. Like, how are they going to know? How's the application developer know what the libraries are using are actually getting? What sort of sample things are being exported?
But before you had another problem, correct? Before you had the problem that if somebody instruments their app with 1,000 Prometheus metrics, you have zero way to control that they will not be exported.
But yeah, absolutely. No, for sure.
So that was the opposite problem. I think the way how we want to do it on the SDK, we will have an API to say, show me all the components, and every component, all the gauges, all the counters, all the distributions metrics. So you have programmatically, you have ways to access all of them if you are the application owner. Cool.
Yeah, that sounds perfect then. Yeah, that sounds exactly like.
And then for everyone, you can go and say, hey, but we will give you a readable whatever. We'll give you not the API directly to the metric or even the metric, but we'll give you more things like enable this metric or disable this metric and set this aggregation, remove this aggregation, whatever, we will give you a lot of like control of what you want to do with that.
Yeah, I know that in my commenter they have the additional feature where the application developer can decide which metric attributes to ignore.
Oh, you have all the control. With our stuff, you'll have even adding more from the context. We do have a more powerful than Micrometer API.
Cool.
But the problem is user, except the difference with Micrometer, and we can do this as well. So, and I'm now not sure if this is the right thing, but should we just have an API that says enable default aggregations for all the metrics in my app? This is mostly for lazy people. Probably we should have something like that.
Yeah, that probably would make sense. And then would the instrumentation owner choose like the default aggregations as a part of their instrumentation?
Yes. So they say, okay, all the measurements, all the distributions will be histograms, and by the way, here are black buckets for the histograms, and that's it.
So
Yeah.
I have a question with regards to the API. You report the data, say here's a metric, here's a metric. Where does that get aggregated, and then what is the format that's provided to the exporters?
Okay, to the exporters, I think based on a long conversation and a lot of people blaming me to use Protos, we're gonna use Pojos, unfortunately, because everyone complained that we bring too many dependencies into the SDK, so we should limit that. So we'll have equivalent definitions the way how the guys Carl, John, and Jason are doing for the span data. We'll do a metrics data. The format is very close to what Prometheus has, or what not that close to statsd, if that's what you are looking for.
Well, what I was kind of curious is the data that gets to the exporter. Is that going to be like a distribution or a value, or like?
It's going to be a histogram.
A histogram, okay.
Or a summary, if you are choosing summary, which is the whole algorithm of keeping some samples of the values and then building the percentile.
This sounds really good to me. I like it.
Taylor, do you have any? I think you are using something more like statsd, correct? And you need every value. Is that true?
So yeah, Datadog generally has a statsd kind of API. I am honestly pretty ignorant to it. I'm not an expert on our metrics side of things, so I can't really give good feedback there. I do know that we recently released a new style of a different style of like histogram, a data representation of that histogram that might be interested for consideration.
Can you show it to me?
Yeah, I'll send you the link. But supposedly it has a better fitting for the actual percentiles, as opposed to I think what it does is it finds those bucket sizes and boundaries a little bit better. And it's, anyway, I'm not an expert on it, so
yeah, just
I'll share it with you, and maybe we could consider using it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not. I'm a big supporter of this, and also we can support multiple types now that we do not have to offer to enforce all the instrumentation to decide of the format and everything. This is a good advantage that we can add any type we want later, and just say, just tell the application owner, hey, by the way, we have a new type for histogram. You may want to use this one for your histograms, without having to change the code in gRPC to record a new histogram.
Okay, I'm gonna try and find it real quick. Just a
Mhm.
second.
Tyler, is that the white paper that you all just recently published on percentiles? Because I think that's definitely been circulating over on our side a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
While we do that, I think we had an open question that maybe Carlos can help with, and that was whether or not we need Zipkin for alpha.
Well, somebody mentioned yesterday that it's not like it's recommended, but we don't need to. But I would love to have it, especially if you guys are already started working on that. It would be nice to have.
We haven't, but we were about to. And if there's something more important or more critical that we could be helping with, maybe we would do that instead.
Okay,
Well, yeah, Bogdan, what do you think?
I think let me go over the issues. Did you approve that thing so I can add them to the org?
No.
So Carlos, go to community and plus ones the issues there, so I can add them to the
Oh,
org. And,
that one, yeah, that one is done. Yes.
okay, so then I will go over all the issues and try to make a triage and talk to John and Jason about this. And if nothing else is more important, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll try to do what is more important.
Yeah, I have stuff to do on my side, but it's around the open tracing shim, so probably it's better if I just take that myself.
No, you do that, and I will work with these guys to do other things that are in the lab.
Sounds good. Well, I mean, I should be able to help you guys, but like I first need to wrap some things up on that open tracing side.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, we're going to be a little busy today with finishing up that span data work.
Mm-hmm. But I will try to identify the priority of items and the sign.
Perfect. That sounds awesome. And next week, I think we're pretty much devoted just to this work. So we should have lots of time to work on it.
I will make sure you have enough work for a week.
I found the paper. It's the algorithm's called DD Sketch. I pasted the link, so you can take a look at it. Let me know what you think. If you have questions, I can put you in contact with some of the authors.
Perfect. I will have to spend time today to read it. I heard about it, but I did not read it. So let me read it and consider to use this one. Probably you already have some client implementation on this, correct?
Yes, we do have a Java implementation, and I was just going to share that.
Is it public?
Yes.
Have you measured it performance-wise compared with the other one? How much costs to build this?
Yeah, so the paper includes performance comparisons with like HDR histogram and some of the other ones.
Okay.
Performance is definitely one of the primary objectives with the algorithm, from what I understand.
Okay, I need to read it then. I really need to read it. And also I read yeah. This is great. Thank you for sharing this. Okay, anything else, or we just call it?
Well, no, actually, I am curious about the schedule, and I posted a PR regarding the dates and everything, but I think that the dates for the alpha, like, I am curious about the schedule.
So schedule is 10/4 next week, end of next week. We have to have all the specification done.
Right.
And 10/11, which is a week after, we have to have all the things that are in specification implemented into the library.
Right. Okay, makes sense. So I will update the README PR, you know,
Okay.
because I was still using September 30. And the
No,
other
no.
thing, no?
No, it's 10.11 because we still need something into the specification. So one thing that we need to do is we have to implement the name tracer RFC, which got merged and most likely is going to be approved, and the specs were written for that.
Yep.
And there are a bunch of other things that we need to implement. But yes.
Okay, and a related question is whether we will be publishing Maven, you know, packages to Maven by then. I guess so, because now we are doing the snapshots.
We are doing what?
At this moment, we are doing snapshots only.
Yeah, but we should not publish anything to Maven until probably until we have a good understanding of where we are. Because in Maven, it's a problem of you're never going to be able to delete anything, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was wondering exactly the same.
Yeah, in my opinion, since we have the snapshots, that should be sufficient. I think that we should hold off on publishing to a public Maven until at most the beta.
Correct. That's my thing as well. I also consider, by the way, currently we should probably have called every snapshot as alpha v01. The based on the document that Sergey published on specs, I think, or on the community, I don't remember where, he calls the version on 10.11 alpha v02 that we are aiming for. So maybe we prefix all our snapshots with alpha v01 right now, and then on 10.11 we'll publish it with alpha v02.
Okay. Yes.
That should be just to be in sync with whatever the specification says.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I will report that.
And then, as Tyler said, until we are beta, we should not publish anything to Maven. Any other questions?
I'm fine.
Carlos, I'm sorry I jumped in your doc just because you were a little late. I started it, and you've been pretty good about doing it before, and so wasn't trying to step on your toes.
No worries.
I don't think it's his doc, though. Whoever is taking notes can take notes.
Yes. And I'm very bad on taking notes because I talk too much. I don't have time to take notes. So.
I think this is it.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. See you next week. I will do a better job today to triage and add more issues and assign to. I mean, I will put need help, and please volunteer yourself whenever you have time.
Great.
Yep.
I also wanted to point out that the auto instrumentation SIG is kind of getting started as a lower priority task, obviously compared to this. So don't let that take away from work on this. But just wanted to make you aware.
Yeah, I know. I created.
I know you did. That was more for like the New Relic folks.
Okay. So yes, there is a open. Let me point to everyone. Community. Auto implementation. This one is here.
Yeah, and I've been wrangling people internally at New Relic to try to get as many people into this project as we possibly can.
Yeah. So by the way, join the Gitter channel if you want for that, and there is no discussion there, and there is an equivalent name for a GitHub repo, which probably I need to set up better, but yes, I will do that after. Taylor, are you gonna work on that?
So I think more intended as a resource right now. My allocation is still pretty heavily, fixing bugs and making customers happy. Most of my time with OpenTelemetry is still, just taking out of my day. So I don't think I'll have a lot of time to actually commit to it, although I guess indirectly a little bit. I did meet with Trask yesterday to kind of discuss ideas that I had for it going forward. But yeah, the amount of coding that I'll actually get to do is probably minimal.
Okay.
At least at the initial stage.
Okay.
Alrighty, we all done?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks,
Happy
everybody.
Friday, everyone.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. See you next time.
See you. Ciao.
Bye.